Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and without further ado, let's jump right into the first devlog for Project 78. So, I figured this is a good way to start the video, but I will just let you know right here and now, there's no AI in the making of this film or any of my projects. There are, however, add-ons that I use throughout this just to make it easier as a one-man show and, to kind of, well, let's call it how it is, to compensate for my lack of experience in education. So if you are interested in using those add-ons for your own experiences, I will try to include all of them in the description below if I can remember them properly. So what you just saw was my first attempt at sculpting the face of the main character for Project 78. That was kind of terrifying to look at, a little bit of an abomination. So I decided to take a break and invest some money, wait until I had the money to invest in a face sculpting course from SpeedChar. If you don't know who that is, SpeedChar is a YouTube channel that does just hours-long time lapses of character sculpting on Blender and ZBrush. And he had a head and face sculpting course that was available. I think I got it on Flip Normals. But I decided, well, maybe if you're going to use Vertex Arcade's adjustable mannequin for the rest of the body, and I did use some base meshes for the hands and the feet, just to make it a little bit easier, especially with the retopology and the seams for those parts. I should at the very least spend some good quality education time on figuring out how to sculpt the head and the face, because I think that's where the real character is, right? And especially because he is going to be wearing clothes and have different outfits and all that, so I can spend kind of more time on the clothing part of it than the body, and at least that's just for this project. In the future projects, the more knowledge and skills I gain, the more original the work is going to be, quote unquote. But I think if you can already tell, there is a massive difference between this attempt and the very first ever attempt, where I was just like looking at a blob and, poking holes and pulling stuff out, assuming that, there's the eyes and there's the nose and all that, versus actually learning the fundamental pieces of a face and, learning where the fat deposits are and where the muscles are. And it makes a massive difference, massive difference, which obviously you can see here. And keep in mind too, if you are on your own project development journey or your own storytelling journey, I'll let you know there are 3 people that I really learned this from. And they're all on YouTube, so that's easy. They're all free. I learned how to do this from Dicko, SpeedChar, like I said before, and Kenny Praise, I think is his name. They all have videos on how to sculpt and model characters in Blender. And what's cool is they all do it differently. So it's not like, you're stuck on one way to do certain things. Like, SpeedChar really taught me realistic anatomy and, how to start with a very, very small, what's called voxel amount, and then work your way into finer and finer details. Kenny Praise kind of taught me more of the stylistic standpoint, which I'm still obviously struggling with here. Because it's really hard, I found out, to make a stylized character when you know realistic anatomy or when you studied realistic anatomy. But in all fairness, that does help. And then Dicko really taught me how to make a character that's optimized for animation. Because obviously this is nice, but if I were to try to animate this, there's so much points of data or voxels that are inside this head alone that my computer, even though it is pretty good for what it's doing, would crash immediately. So learning a combination of all those things has really helped me, and it's going to keep helping me the more I start to apply this work. So that's kind of the background for this. But I guess I should really tell you guys what Project 78's about, because I don't think I've explicitly said what it was about. Even though I did make the door, and that was the first door for the studio. But basically, Project 78 is about this high schooler who dreams his life away, because his idea is, why live life when I can literally just make something better in my dreams? You know, and there's reasons why he kind of gets to that point, and there's, you know, hopefully some good subtext and some good information there that explains that. But then once he starts kind of noticing things in his outside world, like, you know, asking a girl he likes to a dance and finding his love for music, he starts to kind of transition from living this easier fantasy into actual life and noticing that it's so much better. And speaking of so much better, if you just saw that comparison of side by side of the old face and the new face, you can clearly see how much progress is being put into this, which I'm very excited about. And, you know, and it's exciting for me to see just across the board. Obviously not with the feet. And I'm only concerned about the feet because this is the only character in the film that has a shot of him being barefoot. So everybody else, their feet are just going to be socks and shoes at best. But, you know, this is really exciting for me to kind of see this project come to reality, because I had the idea for this when I was 16, I think. And then I wrote the script for this in college. And now, thanks to, you know, a lot of long nights, you know, 12-hour nights for weeks on end with no days off, I was able to finally afford, you know, the tech to actually do this. And it's just been such a blessing and a really humbling experience to be like, I knew I was inexperienced, but I didn't know how inexperienced I was until I actually started making it. But either way, you know, this has been a project, I think at this point, 12 years in the making and going. So to see it get to this point is really exciting. And this video is only going to be on the sculpting of the character. Eventually in the later videos, it'll be, you know, the retopology and the texture painting, which that's when he really comes to life. Because I also didn't think about this too. I knew how to sculpt a face. I didn't know how to sculpt a specific age of a face. And that's very different, because this guy is supposed to be a high schooler and he looks like he is an aspiring novelist in his 40s. But I promise you, once the retopology comes in where he loses some of the detail in his face, and once I start adding the texture paint, he looks tremendously better. So, yes, this is the main character, and it's just exciting to see him come to life, you know, and not feel like using add-ons is cheating or, you know, I mean, it is a compensation for my lack of skill, but at least I'm still using it to move the project forward. And so that's been a really, really exciting growth for me. So, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you are interested, please consider liking and subscribing and letting me know in the comments, you know, where you are excited to see this project go. And if you'd like to support this as well, feel free to join me on Patreon to help fund the project. Because right now, again, it's just me. And, you know, the more resources I'm able to collect and garner, obviously the more opportunities there are to build this thing into what it can become. So anyways, I'm done rambling. Thanks, everybody.